So one of the most famous happiness psychologists is called Tal Ben-Shahar. He actually had one of the most popular courses at Harvard University because his course on happiness psychology basically teaches people how to have more happiness in their lives and how to live happier lives. And he claims that when it comes to psychology, we misinterpret one key thing in how to actually utilize the psychology science in order to create better lives and to create happier lives. So I also spent quite a bit of time studying what we call positive psychology when I was at Harvard as well. And I'm going to use all of the things that I learned in those years and condense them so to save you all that time. So I'm going to share with you the key findings that a lot of people are missing in their pursuit of happiness, in creating happier, more meaningful lives, and how you can do that for yourself. This might be kind of surprising to you all. It's not really talked about quite a bit, but I hope that it is helpful, and I have spent a lot of time thinking about this and studying it, so I hope that this short video will save you all of that time and really give you the outcome of creating a happier life without all that time that I spent reading about this. Okay, so when it comes to happiness, we know that anything in psychology is a practice. And this is one thing that people are really missing in their pursuit of happiness. Tal Ben-Shahar talks about how in any other discipline, you literally have to spend hours and hours and hours practicing. If you want to become a famous celloist, or if you even want to become fairly decent at the cello, you have to put in the work. You have to practice over and over and over again. And what we see in psychology, and I see this in my clients, and I'm sure you probably see this in yourself as well, is that we have this kind of need for instant gratification when it comes to happiness. And one of the reasons for this, I think, is that oftentimes psychology is fairly easy for us to understand in theory. When somebody explains a psychological concept, like maybe some of the ones I've explained in these videos, you all sort of get it. You're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But getting it is just the first step. So it's kind of like knowing how to play a cello in theory, but never actually touching a cello ever in your life. If you listen to one of these videos that I make and you never actually practice any of the concepts, you've basically only learned how to play a cello in theory. And I'm sure we can both agree here that if you've never actually touched a cello, you're going to be a very poor cello player. Okay, so cellos aside, what I'm saying here is that psychology is about repetition. It is about putting in the work in your mind and really creating those patterns of thinking that will elicit more positive emotions. I'm going to break this down for you because at first it can be a little bit confusing. So most of us have this relationship with our minds, with our thoughts, in which we essentially believe everything that kind of goes through our mind. We feel that it is reality. And so essentially it's almost like we're reading a book and our thoughts are creating that story around us and where you believe all of the story. And so when it comes to changing psychology, it's really crucial to become a little bit more flexible with your relationship with your thoughts. So the first step is to really consider maybe not all of my thoughts are absolute reality. Maybe there's some wiggle room in how I could perceive situations and how I could think about them. So once you've kind of established that ability, you can move on to considering, okay, so if my thoughts are malleable, what emotions do I actually want to be feeling throughout my day? How do I want to feel? Do I want to feel sad, angry, frustrated? Or do I want to feel joyful, content, energetic? I'm guessing most of you probably want to feel more positive emotions than negative emotions. And again, I say this in most videos, but I'm just using the colloquial term negative emotions. Let's remember that no emotions are actually negative. They're just sometimes more difficult or more painful than others. And so if you want to feel more positive emotions, you will need to think thoughts that elicit more positive emotions. And this is the key question that you will need to ask yourself throughout the day. How are these thoughts making me feel? And are they eliciting the emotion I want? Because for most of you, and this is for most people in general, we think more thoughts that are harmful to us than helpful to us. And so this ratio between harmful and helpful is crucial to your psychology. Because if you want to create happiness, if you want to feel happier, you will need to shift the ratio from harmful to more helpful. You will need to create thoughts in your mind that will actually elicit feelings of happiness. And so if you're like any of my clients, you probably look at me now and you're like, okay, got it, sounds good. But how do I do that? Okay, so this is where impulse control comes in. And I really think that impulse control might be like the magical key to life. And if you watch my other videos, you probably know I talk about this a lot. But the thing about happiness is that it is also an impulse control issue as well, just like most things in life. Okay, so consider that you know somebody that wants to lose weight. Maybe they want to become more healthier, whatever. They just want to shed a few pounds and become, lighter, whatever. Not to say that that needs to happen, but this is just an example that we're going to use here. Okay, so if somebody says that they want to lose weight, and then they also say, but I want to eat an entire cake every single day, you probably have a natural knowing that lets you know that those two things don't coincide. Like you can either have one or you can have the other. You can either lose weight or you can eat an entire cake every day. And let's assume that the cake is kind of highly caloric and would exceed the calories that a person would need in one day. And so the thing is that our psychology works in a similar way. You can either think negative thoughts or you can be happy. The issue is that most of us want both. Like we want to think the negative thoughts and we want to be happy. We want to think the thoughts that make us anxious. We want to ruminate on past mistakes. We want to judge ourselves. We want to make ourselves feel guilty. But then we also want to feel happy. The thing is, you can't have both. You can't have your cake and eat it too. And you will have to choose. So you have the complete autonomy to think as many negative thoughts as you want. Like you can go crazy, like think all of the negative thoughts you want. Like I'm not going to judge you and I'm not going to try to force you to change. But it will not allow you to also experience more states of joy, more states of positive emotion. Because that's just not how psychology works. And that's just kind of hard biology and the facts of our human limitations. And so once you accept that you can either only have one or the other, a lot of people will choose the happiness. A lot of people will decide that, I'd rather be happy than be attached to thinking my negative thoughts and perceptions. And so essentially, just like throughout the day, we all encounter moments of impulse control. Maybe we want to yell at someone and we don't. Maybe we want to say a snide remark in a meeting, but we don't. Maybe we want to eat a bunch of treats that are probably not great for us, but we don't. Maybe we want to sleep in, but we don't. Everyone has lots of moments of impulse control in their day. And your thoughts are just the exact same way, except they're not external, they're in your head. So when you feel yourself kind of going down that rabbit hole, that vicious cycle of rumination or guilt or judgment, and you start feeling sad, or you're starting to lose self-confidence, or you're just starting to feel like bad about yourself, you can notice that and you can stop. You can stop thinking the things that make you feel awful about yourself. And you can stop engaging in what we call rumination in psychology. Rumination is essentially that constant loop of the thought pattern that makes you feel awful. And of course, this is not to say that you should never feel a negative emotion. Please do not take away from this video. It is to say that you don't need to make yourself feel worse than you already do. You can engage in more helpful thinking than harmful thinking. And rumination is always, always harming you. It is not helpful. It is not helpful to worry a ton. It is not helpful to make yourself feel bad about something you did in the past over and over and over again. These things are objectively not helpful. They have been proven scientifically to not be helpful. So you can let go of it. You can stop doing it because you want something else. And so one note here about feeling negative emotions like sadness, guilt, anger, is that we will feel negative emotions, and oftentimes they are actually helpful to us. So if you experience a great loss and you feel an extreme sense of grief, that grief is helping you heal from that loss. In this case, this negative emotion is actually helpful to you. It is serving a purpose. It is normal to feel grief after a loss. Because consider, if you lost something or someone that was very, very important to you, you would want to feel grief, correct? I mean, most people wouldn't want to feel zero grief after a great loss because that would indicate that they didn't care. And so this is a key kind of distinction between feeling useful negative emotions that are helping you versus harmful negative emotions. Because a helpful negative emotion will help you grow, will help you heal, will help you create a more balanced life. It is life to have negative emotions. It is normal to feel angry or sad when you see the things in the news these days. Like, that's completely normal. But if you are constantly having that in a loop in your mind and it's just going off and this is all you think about, that is rumination, and that is not helping you. And that is not going to create that positive ratio that you need to create the well-being that you want in life and to create the success that you want in life. And remember, the question you need to ask yourself when it comes to your thinking is this helpful or is this harmful? Because most of us are asking, is this true or is this untrue? And then we spiral out of control, thinking, trying to prove ourselves right or wrong. That's a bit of a fool's errand because it's actually very difficult to decipher whether something's true or untrue. We spend thousands, millions of dollars on science and countless hours doing this. And you don't need to do this in your mind. You can just consider, how do I want to feel? And then choose your thoughts based on those feelings instead of just allowing all of the thoughts to come to you. Because you know how to do this. You know how to engage in impulse control. You just haven't done it for your own mind yet. And once you do, it will get easier and easier to do so every day. Because remember, psychology is about repetition. Well-being and happiness psychology is very much about putting in the reps, doing the work of every single time you shift your mind away from something that is harmful to you. All right, I hope this video was helpful. I will see you all next week with another video. Take care, all.